The Marine in the crowd asterisk the school auditorium buzzed with excitement as proud families filled the rows of seats, holding flowers, cameras, and balloons. It was graduation day, a day filled with tears, joy, and pride. In the middle of the crowd sat James Carter, a tall, strong black man in his late 50s. Wearing a perfectly pressed U.S. Marine dress uniform, the shiny medals on his chest told stories of bravery, discipline, and sacrifice, though he never spoke of them. He sat alone, but his presence was powerful. His son, Malik Carter, was one of the top graduates, and James wouldn't have missed this moment for anything in the world. He had raised Malik on his own after losing his wife to cancer years ago. Through the pain, through the long nights, and hard days, James remained strong because he was a Marine and because he was a father. Today wasn't just about a diploma. It was about the journey they had taken together. He arrived early, took a middle row seat to avoid blocking others' views, and sat quietly, not drawing attention to himself. He didn't need to be in the front row. He didn't need recognition. Seeing Malik walk across that stage was his reward. As families laughed and took photos, James sat with his hands folded, posture straight, eyes focused on the stage. Occasionally, a few people glanced. His way, some admired the uniform. Others stared with confusion or judgment. James had learned over the years how to stay calm when people saw only his skin and not his service. He'd faced tougher battles in war zones and boardrooms, and he didn't let small looks shake him. He had learned long ago that real strength doesn't need to shout, it just stands tall. The announcer's voice came on, and the ceremony began. As names were called and students walked proudly across the stage, James smiled with quiet pride, waiting for one name, Malik Carter. His heart beat a little faster each time the list moved closer. This was Malik's day, but it was also James's. Victory. He had given everything to see this moment, to make sure his son had a better life than he did. In that room full of celebration, he sat alone, but not unnoticed and not unloved. He was a father, a Marine, and today he was just a man waiting to witness the moment his son stepped into his future. Unwelcome attention asterisk as the ceremony moved forward. With students walking across the stage and families clapping proudly, James Carter remained still, his eyes locked on the front, quietly waiting to hear his son's name. But a shift in energy caught his attention. From the corner of his eye, he noticed two security guards near the side entrance whispering to each other. One of them pointed toward him. James didn't flinch. He'd seen that look before, a mix of uncertainty and suspicion. He told himself to stay focused. This was Malik's day, and nothing else mattered. But moments later, both guards began, walking down the aisle straight toward him. As they got closer, people nearby turned to watch. The guard stopped beside his seat, one lowering his voice to say, "Sir, we need you to come with us." James looked up calmly, confused but polite. "Why? I'm here for my son's graduation," he replied firmly, without raising his voice. The second guard looked uncomfortable, but said, "This section is reserved for parents only, sir. You weren't on the list we were given." James stared for a moment, then answered, "I'm his father. I raised him. I've been to every parent-teacher meeting, every school event. I'm supposed to be here." The words were calm but carried the weight of every sacrifice he'd made. Still, the guards insisted. "We understand, sir, but we were told this is a reserved area." James could feel the eyes around him. Some people looked away, pretending not to see what was happening. Others stared in silence. No one spoke up. Jacket was being asked to leave his own son's graduation. James stood up slowly, not in anger, but with quiet strength. He looked the guards in the eye and said, "I've worn this uniform in war zones and funerals. I didn't come here to fight. I came here to watch my son." The tension in the room grew thick. People began whispering. A teacher on stage paused mid-sentence. Still, the guards didn't back down. To them, he was just another man in the wrong seat, not the father of the young man being celebrated. As James stood there, surrounded by silence and stares, something shifted behind him. He didn't notice it yet, but in the last row of the auditorium, 6 figures had quietly stood up, and everything was about to change. Seal Brotherhood asterisk, the air inside the auditorium felt heavy, like the whole room had paused mid-breath. James Carter stood tall, his Marine uniform catching the light. Surrounded now by 6 men whose silent presence spoke louder than any words, the lead man stepped forward, tall, broad, with sharp eyes and a calm expression. His suit didn't hide the quiet strength in his posture or the weight of experience in his eyes. He looked directly at the guards, his voice low but clear. "He's not going anywhere," he said. "This man led us through more than you can imagine. He's earned this moment more than anyone in this room." The guards stood frozen, the authority in the man's tone making them hesitate. He didn't shout, he didn't threaten, he simply spoke with the calm confidence of someone who had seen real battle and didn't fear confrontation. "He's a decorated Marine," the man continued, "and he's the reason I'm standing here today." One by one, the other 5 stepped forward and nodded in silent agreement. Their presence was like a wall, not aggressive, but immovable. People in the audience began to murmur. Some clapped softly. One elderly woman near the aisle wiped her eyes, touched by the loyalty and respect on display. Even the principal finally stepped off the stage, walking quickly toward the scene. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Carter," he said, his face red with embarrassment. "There's been a terrible misunderstanding." James gave a respectful nod, but said nothing. He wasn't here to argue or shame anyone. He had come to celebrate his son. One of the guards lowered his eyes and apologized quietly. James looked at him and replied with quiet grace, "I've fought bigger battles. Let's move on." The men in suits remained close, but stepped back slightly, giving him space. They had made their point. They weren't here to create chaos. They were here to protect dignity. James returned to his seat, head held high, his uniform not just a symbol of service, but now a symbol of something deeper: honor, pride, and the unbreakable bond of brotherhood. As he sat down, the announcer cleared her throat and continued with the names. The moment had passed, but the memory of it stayed in the room, lingering like the echo of something powerful. People no longer saw just a man in uniform. They saw a father, a leader, and a soldier who had earned not just respect, but loyalty that never dies. A father's moment asterisk. The ceremony continued, but something had changed in the room. There was a stillness, now not of fear or discomfort, but of respect. James Carter sat back in his seat, his hands folded in his lap, eyes locked on the stage. The 6 SEALs who had stood for him now stood near the back wall, watching silently, still and alert like they always had been in the field. James didn't need them beside him anymore. Their message had already been delivered. The principal returned to the podium and spoke with a more careful tone. It was as if the weight of what had just happened had settled on everyone's shoulders. And then, finally, the moment James had been waiting for arrived. The announcer called out, "Malik Carter." The room clapped, and cheers filled the air, but James heard none of it. His eyes locked on his son as Malik stepped onto the stage, tall and confident in his cap and gown. For a second, Malik scanned the crowd, and when he found his father, their eyes met across the distance. In that brief moment, it was as if no one else existed. Malik paused, smiled slightly, and brought his hand to his forehead in a small, proud salute. The gesture was subtle, but it shook James to his core. He wasn't a man who cried "Isola in war," not in pain, but he felt his eyes sting. He returned the salute with slow precision, holding it just long enough for his son to see. Around them, people clapped louder. Some stood, some turned to look at James, and many smiled with admiration. This wasn't just a graduation anymore. It was a tribute to fatherhood, to service, to the strength it takes to raise a child. Alone in a world that doesn't always see your worth, Malik took his diploma with pride, walked off the stage, and instead of heading straight back to his seat, he walked down the steps and straight into the aisle, where he hugged his father tight. The applause didn't stop. It grew louder, more emotional. It wasn't planned, but in that hug, one full of history, sacrifice, and love, the entire room understood what the uniform truly meant. James closed his eyes for a moment, breathing it all in. Not just the pride of a soldier, but the deeper pride of a father whose mission had always been one thing: to give his son a better life. And in that moment, mission accomplished. Asterisk, if this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and share your thoughts. Asterisk, we'd love to hear what this moment meant to you. Asterisk, subscribe to Deep Wounds for more powerful and emotional stories every week.